This video is sponsored by FlexiSpot.
There are a lot of cameras out there, but I think there's one that every manufacturer is clearly ignoring, and that is the small camera with a large sensor. And in fact, Sony did this maybe 10 years ago now with the RX1R and then the RX1R2. And what that was a fixed focal length, super compact full frame. And when it came out, it was not very popular, at least from what I've read. But now it seems to have adopted some sort of cult following, and you can't really touch one for less than $2,000 US. And in fact, there are 1-inch sensored cameras that are very compact, such as the Sony ZV-1, but there is such a drastic difference between a 1-inch sensor resolution and what you get versus an APS-C versus a full frame. I think at minimum, at least for me, APS-C is the smallest that I'll go because low light really suffers when you go smaller than that. And I guess what's most surprising is that Sony never developed a small fixed focal length APS-C camera, but Fuji did. And this is it. This is the Fujifilm X70. And this thing is exactly what we need right now. This Fuji X70 was originally released in February 2016, which makes this camera 8 years old. It features a 16 megapixel X-Trans 2 sensor, a fixed non-removable 18.5mm f2.8 prime lens, a 3-inch tilting LCD screen, a leaf shutter, and an all-metal build that makes any modern Sony feel cheap by comparison. This is an absolutely interesting camera to me because it feels unlike anything else. It's so well built, and going from using this X70 to picking up the A6100, it is kind of a drastic difference. It's kind of like going from a mirrorless camera to a disposable camera. Maybe not quite that drastic, but it's definitely very drastic. And look at the size difference. It is smaller than an A6100 is with no lens on it. It has the typical Fuji goodness on top, primarily the shutter speed dial, exposure compensation dial, a very tactile feeling clicky aperture ring around the lens, and built-in film simulations, which Fuji is all about. The thing that makes this camera so good is that at the time it was released, it was a smaller version of the X100T, which is what the newest X100VI is derived from. And the X100V and X100VI may go down as the most popular Fuji cameras of all time, certainly the most pre-ordered camera maybe ever. But what's weird about this little camera is that while the X100 series continued on towards success, this one, which was released in February 2016, was discontinued in December of the same year. Not because it was a sales flop, this camera did nearly everything right, but they still discontinued it. And you can blame Sony for this, as they abruptly decided to discontinue manufacturing the 16.3 megapixel sensor that went into this little Fuji. And that may be a little known fact, maybe it is a well-known fact, I don't know, but Sony makes sensors for nearly every other camera manufacturer, it seems like. Now, what Fuji could have done and what they tried to do was to pack this little camera body with the newer, more higher resolution version of the upgraded sensor, the X-Trans 3. However, they decided that it was way too hot for this compact camera body, so a good thing ended badly. And that's why today this is one of those cameras which has a large following of enthusiasts and prices are strong. This little camera was $700 new in 2016, but now used ones are $800 on eBay and $1,100 on sites like MVP. It is a surprisingly capable little camera. It's better than it should be, and that's because the recipe is right. It's a small camera with a large sensor. With its JPEG quality, it's an easy camera to pick up, to bring with you, and to use without thinking about it. Just point and shoot. But unlike point and shoots, the quality is as good as any other mirrorless camera at the time. And using it is fun, refreshing, and never feels like work. But speaking of work, you may have noticed my background. I finally mounted my sound panels, but more importantly, I got a brand new sit-stand desk and a new chair from FlexiSpot. If we are to believe what we read online, the consensus is that sitting is not good for you. So if you need to sit at a desk to perform your work, a sit-stand desk is a necessity. It reduces stress on the body, helps with blood circulation, helps with concentration and creativity, and I'm sure there are many more benefits. This is the E7 Pro from FlexiSpot, and it blows away the other sit-stand desk that I had in here before. It has two powerful motors that support up to 440 pounds of payload, which is also fun for kids. You can set up presets to your ideal heights, and it moves quickly and solidly between them. Even at this elevated height, it is very stable with little wobbling. The materials, packaging, and build all exceeded my expectations. And I'll also mention this chair, which is the C7. And you may not have seen my other small chair in this room before this one, but it's about as comfortable as sleeping in an airplane bathroom. This chair though is good. It has an adaptive lumbar support system which moves as you move. It's adjustable in all directions. You can even tilt the seat forward, which relieves back pressure. The armrests are fully adjustable, and my favorite part is that it reclines with a headrest so I can fall asleep in it if I wanted to. It's great if you're a freelancer, editor, IT specialist, if you work from home, and with FlexiSpot there are dozens of options for a wide variety of budgets and plenty of customization, so you can even add a treadmill to your setup. So check out the link down in the description for a special discount code on a brand new desk or a chair. Special thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to this X70. I took a bunch of photos with this, mostly family photos. All of these are JPEGs straight out of the camera. Let's just take a look at what this little thing is capable of. Ready, set, go. So those were taken with the classic chrome simulation with a couple of small tweaks. And I have to say that this camera loves people, especially group photos. The skin tones are excellent coming out of it. If you incorporate the flash, you get a very kind of 90s vibe, nostalgia look to your photos. And at higher ISO values, you get this almost pleasing grain to your images, which is much better than the digital noise that you get with other cameras. Now, because of the size, I took this camera everywhere, to places I normally wouldn't take a camera, because throwing it in a pocket was easy. And the controls and handling are excellent. I'm a big fan of the clicky aperture ring on this tiny lens. Optically, this 18.5mm isn't the sharpest in the world, but it's definitely adequate even by today's standards. It gives you a roughly 27mm full frame field of view with not much bokeh, so if you are looking for that, this isn't the camera for you, but it is wider than 35mm, so I suppose it's a little bit more usable. And because this camera doesn't have a viewfinder, you tend to hold it a little bit more forward, so you get almost that 35mm field of view. The tilt screen on the back is a nice addition, and all of the controls are really solid. It's a charming little camera. There are three pretty significant problems with this camera, enough to where they are deal breakers for me and leave me wanting something else. Number one is autofocus. I don't quite understand this, as I was using the Fuji X-E2S at the same time, both cameras with the same X-Trans 2 sensor, but the X-E2S was significantly faster and more reliable in terms of autofocus. This X70 is frustratingly bad, especially with children who don't like standing still for a photo. Even with a static subject, however, it hunts and sometimes even gives up. It got to the point where I just changed my autofocus mode to zone instead of wide, and the improvement was drastically better. Still, this camera with 77 autofocus points should, in theory, perform better than a camera with 49 points, but it doesn't. Problem number 2 is there is no viewfinder, and I debated a long time whether buying this camera was a good idea or not. A camera without one just feels incomplete to me, and I get that it allows for a smaller size and less weight, but a little pop-up viewfinder would have been awesome. Yes, you can buy a $200 cold shoe optical viewfinder, but that doesn't tell you anything about what your camera is seeing, it just helps with framing. And the other competitor to this camera is the popular Ricoh GR series, which also shares this same problem of no viewfinder. And while there are a lot of photographers and hobbyists out there who just shoot using the LCD, I personally favor the experience with the viewfinder. Number 3 is battery life. This little camera has a tiny battery. It's the NP95, I think it is. Now it's rated for 300 shots, but I was lucky to get even half of that with these aftermarket batteries. Worse than that, there is no battery percentage on the back. All you have are 3 little bars that indicate what? 100%, 66%, and 33%. Let me just say that that 33% bar fades to 0% quite fast. So you have to carry spare batteries everywhere you go with this X70. Those are all minuscule things to improve upon, however. Think of this. All Sony needs to do is put their newest APS-C sensor in a tiny, well-built camera body like this, add an electronic viewfinder, and jam the Z-type battery in there sideways. Then take the 20mm f2.8 pancake that they made in 2013, throw it away, make a new pancake prime lens, let's say a 23mm f2, and permanently affix it to the body. And then honestly, they could turn off all of the video features, just make this a photos only camera. That way they don't have to worry about overheating. And to put the cherry on top, maybe add some crazy film-like presets, I don't know, maybe even add some weather sealing. And I guess what I've described here is exactly what makes the X100V and the X106 so popular. Yes, they are definitely bigger than this X70, but they are exactly what so many people are looking for, and frankly, I don't understand why these sort of projects aren't a priority. Sony has dedicated a lot of time and money to their ZV lineup of cameras, which are dedicated video cameras, and they've done extremely well. Why not take kind of that idea and develop it into a compact fixed focal length APS-C camera that's really designed for those enthusiasts, something that you can throw in your pocket and something that takes excellent photos with no compromises due to a smaller sensor size. I really just want a modern one of these, a tiny everyday camera that's brilliant. And in researching for this video, I came across numerous other opinions just like mine, people who love the X70 but want the X80. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Is there a market for a fixed focal length, super compact APS-C size sensor camera, or is there a market for a new version of the RX1R3? Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.